Welcome back to the Now Morning Show at 7:36 a.m. and our next conversation is focusing on a change in donor policy needed in Trinidad and Tobago. Joining us in studio is Anderson Mitchell, kidney patient, and so much more. Good morning, Anderson, and welcome back.
Morning.
How are you doing this morning?
I'm taking it one day at a time.
One day at a time and very strong. And thank you so much for joining us. Now, let's get straight into our conversation. Can you just share with us a brief history of Anderson and how we're here today?
All right. Well, when I was growing up, my mother was diagnosed with colon cancer, and she died at a very young age. I'm older than she was when she died. So kind of growing up, I grew up taking care of my sister. When I was diagnosed, I think that was around 2014. I didn't have any family members that could donate an organ to me. Nonetheless, my doctor told me to wait it out because my condition was caused by FSGS, which is an autoimmune disease. And he was a little bit fearful that if I were to get a transplant too soon, that it would also inherit the disease as well. So he allowed some time to pass, and when he suggested to get a transplant, it was right before the pandemic. Mm-hmm. So now, you know, my sister tried to donate, and she was not eligible. So I was looking for a donation. But the thing is that it wasn't always like that. In 2016, when I first started hemodialysis, we had the transplant units had a proper system in place. They weren't doing many transplants. They were doing, I think, like 1 or 2 a month, which is not good, but still better than zero.
Right.
And from what I understand now, if they've done any at all, it's much less. Mm-hmm. So I feel like, you know, moving forward, like you start off doing 17, maybe you move to 20,
right,
move to 25, and eventually, you know, we would be in a much better place. But right now, we're not doing any. The only way to get a transplant is with a live donor.
Right. And the deceased donor program would have been stopped or paused in 2020, correct?
I think it was paused for the pandemic.
The pandemic, right? Yeah. But we haven't seen it come back on.
It should be back by now because it's been 4 years.
Yeah. It has been 4 years, definitely. Yeah. But one of the things that you mentioned is that now we see mostly live donors, which definitely brings so many more issues to the table, especially when it comes to firstly being informed as to what process exactly you're about to undergo and so much more. From where you sit and what you've experienced thus far, do you see sufficient awareness with the general public of Trinidad and Tobago?
I guess you could say that we're just not used to that. Really and truly, deceased donors is how you supplement the organ. Right. I believe that around 60% of all donors are deceased donors. So we usually how it's done is you have to opt in. Mm-hmm. So you would go to the transplant unit, they will do blood tests, etc., and they will see that you are a deceased donor. So when you, Lord forbid, if you die, they will use your organs to help save somebody else's life. It's not like that in most developed countries. In most developed countries, you have to opt out. Right. So when you go to do your driver's license, they will tell you, they'll ask you, are you a donor? And if you want to opt out, you have to provide reasoning and etc., all those things. We should have a system similar to that. And the other thing is that we need to inform people on how kidney transplants work, because it's like one of the simplest transplants. Like my doctor, he said, oh, you know, sometimes they used to do that every day. And the people were more open to the idea of being a live donor because they were educated on the fact that most live donors are extremely healthy people, because your doctor wouldn't operate on you if you lacked or if you were ill or they saw your family history or something like that. They say that live donors tend to live longer than the average person, because if you are able to pass all the prerequisites, it means to say that you're a very healthy person.
Yeah. And I think, this is something that we need to continue to educate the public about as well, with the fact that it's not all doom and gloom as many will perceive it to be, or high risk per se. But there are some problems and risks when it comes to the current situation and that lack of awareness as well. From what you've experienced thus far, what would you say are some of the major problems and risks?
Well, I mean, first things first, if we don't have a deceased donor list and program, let's say you donated a kidney to your brother or something like that. And now, of course, the doctors will check to make sure that the risk for you of getting any kidney disease would be extremely low. In most developed or developing countries, if you were now still to get some sort of kidney failure, you would be placed at the top of the list immediately because you're already a kidney donor. If we don't have a deceased donor list, how do we cater that for the people who are giving kidneys to their loved ones now? Yeah. Right? That's one thing. The other thing, as I said again, is education. People have some extremely extreme views on kidney donation, because some people think that you will get problems one time and you will shorten your life. And my doctors said that however long you was going to live before you donated your kidney is how long you're going to live after you donate your kidney. He said that essentially one kidney functioning at about 80% is enough to sustain a person. And if you have two functioning at 100, you could more than share one.
Yeah. You definitely can more than share one. For those of you who are wishing to contribute to Anderson's operations and treatment, you can donate to either his GoFundMe campaign, which is gofundme.com/F/kidney-for-Anderson, or his bank account information, which you are going to see at the bottom of the screen. But let's go back to the conversation. Very important here. Of course, one of the things that we have seen being advertised, I would say more social media-wise, is per se, is, herbalists, people who are saying, herbs are something that can heal, make a difference. But we do know that in many cases, we do need to go to your standard medical doctor. Yeah. Any thoughts on that?
I feel like, us not having a properly functioning program puts the whole nation at risk, because now you make a pathway for a market where people sell their kidneys, or people could probably be kidnapped and their organs harvested. And I wouldn't like to see something like that. The other thing too is that patients tend to become targets for alternative medicine and fake medicine and the Trevor Sayers of the world. It is like, basically, like when I was doing hemodialysis, which is the one where you sit down in the chair, and they take your blood. So it's a room full of people doing hemodialysis, and eventually you'll start talking to the person next to you. You'll make friends, and then when the next time you come to do dialysis, you'll see them again. And I've had a few people who've told me, talking to a herbalist or talking to this guy, and he have a solution, and they say, I'm going to come off dialysis just now. And all that really happens is they die. And that is sad.
I'm glad that you mentioned dialysis, because one of the things also I know was a point to note is the fact that prolonged periods on dialysis can actually cause damage to other organs, which can then affect your standing as a patient to be a recipient of the needed organ,
Generally, kidney failure on the whole, I mean, I'm no doctor, but I've seen tons of them. Generally, kidney failure on the whole will start damaging the other organs. But when you're doing hemodialysis, you have to understand you're connecting to a machine that also has a heart and a kidney, and the heart is pumping blood out of you, and it will tend to interfere with the rhythm of your heart. So usually when you finish dialysis, they don't allow you to stand up immediately. They tell you to wait for 10 minutes so that your body could, acclimatize itself to its normal heart rate. Because I've seen people stand up out of their chair and fall right down one immediately.
And Anderson, just before we wrap our conversation, the conversation also, of course, should be focused on solutions. Do you have any recommendations moving forward?
As I said, I'm no doctor, I'm no specialist, but I don't see an issue with something that we were doing in 2016 that can be done now. I know that some of the setbacks, because like one of the tests that you have to do, like the HLA test, Right now, the way that is done in Trinidad is that we take your blood and we send it to Colorado, and then they send back the results. The lifespan of a kidney for surgery, if someone dies, you could keep that kidney on ice for 2 days.
Yeah.
2 days is not sufficient time to be sending things to Colorado, you know. We could learn to do that ourselves, and I don't see why we can't get the systems and the equipment and the knowledge to do it. There are a few other solutions that I think of. We could probably team up with another developing nation in the Caribbean maybe and try to see if we could introduce a program together, you know. But these are just ideas that I have. I'm sure they're excellent people in our medical system that have better ideas and know the system well enough to make positive change.
Well, the one thing is working together, we hope to make some positive change. Anderson, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you
We
for having me.
appreciate you, and we appreciate the fact that you took the time out to make it here as well.
It's no problem. Even if I don't benefit from this myself, I'm hoping that, you know, other people, because more and more people are suffering with kidney failure, and maybe it could help one of them in the future if we raise awareness.
We will continue to do so.
Thank you.
Pleasure. Anderson Mitchell here with us this morning. Please stay tuned to the Now Morning Show, and remember that you can donate at his GoFundMe campaign and the information that you would have seen on screen. Stay tuned. We'll be back after this break.